All right, let's jump right into it. Christopher Nolan's 2006 masterpiece, The Prestige. Well, it's honestly pretty easy to dismiss as just a movie about magic. But to truly understand what's going on, we need to completely reframe how we look at it. We're going to look at this film not just as a story, but as a flawlessly executed magic trick in itself. It is literally a masterclass in misdirection, designed to expose the totally devastating cost of obsession.
You know that famous opening line, "Now you're looking for the secret, but you won't find it. You want to be fooled." Cutter, the engineer, says this right at the start, and it perfectly predicts our own willingness as the audience to just completely ignore the brutal truth sitting right in front of our faces. We actually choose the mystery over the horrifying reality.
So, in this explainer, we're going to break this down into 4 parts: the ultimate magic trick, the pledge, the turn, and finally, the prestige. Starting things off with part 1, the ultimate magic trick.
As Cutter tells us, every great trick has 3 distinct parts. First up is the pledge, where you present something ordinary. Then comes the turn, where you make it do something extraordinary. And finally, the prestige, where you bring it back. Now, does that structure sound familiar? Because it brilliantly mirrors the exact 3-act cinematic architecture of the film itself, and it totally maps out the vicious rivalry between Robert Angier and Alfred Borden.
Moving on to part 2, the pledge, hidden details.
Okay, let's think about the birdcage illusion shown early in the film. A bird seemingly disappears and reappears, right? Well, the secret is incredibly macabre. The original bird is violently crushed inside a collapsible cage, and a completely different but identical bird is produced for the applause. This is a dead-on, deadly metaphor that perfectly foreshadows Robert Angier's tragic final illusion, the real transported man. Just like that poor bird, Angier is brutally sacrificing a double, literally himself, in a hidden water tank, all in the name of entertainment and wonder.
And that brings us to just an absolutely incredible moment of foreshadowing. When Borden performs this trick, a little boy starts crying and asks, "But where's his brother?" Just think about the absolute audacity of Christopher Nolan here. He literally puts this line in the very first act. The kid instantly solves the massive twist of the entire movie, that Borden has a twin brother. But we, the audience, we completely ignore it, simply because we want to be fooled.
All right, let's pivot to part 3, the turn, dueling philosophies.
The whole story really hinges on this incredibly deep psychological war. On one side, you have Robert Angier, the consummate showman. He's driven entirely by fame, theatricality, and the roar of the crowd. On the other side is Alfred Borden, the gritty craftsman. He's devoted purely to the art of the trick itself, but he kind of lacks the charisma to actually sell it. They're essentially 2 halves of the perfect magician, completely twisted into bitter, obsessive enemies.
Now, to truly understand Angier's mindset, we've got to look at Derek Parfit's teletransportation paradox. Basically, Parfit theorized that if a person is perfectly duplicated, both copies share the exact same psychological continuity, the same memories, the same identity. Angier completely embraces this memory theory of survival. When he uses Nikola Tesla's machine to clone himself, each copy retains all of his memories. Because of this, Angier actually believes he survives the trick every single night, even though he's violently killing a version of himself. Each and every clone genuinely believes they are the original Angier.
So while Angier operates on Parfit's memory theory, Borden represents a totally different concept, David Hume's bundle theory. Hume argued that there's no persistent self at all, just a bundle of shared perceptions and experiences. And the Borden twins? They completely sacrifice their individual selves, Alfred I and Alfred II, totally erasing their unique identities just to become one single bundle known to the world as Alfred Borden.
It's also super interesting how the film draws a direct parallel to the historical War of the Currents. Angier is basically Thomas Edison. He's a ruthless businessman and a brilliant showman who knows exactly how to capture the public's imagination, even if it means stealing the core innovation. Borden, on the other hand, is Nikola Tesla, a deeply misunderstood visionary who creates actual magic but just totally lacks the polish to sell it to the masses.
Which brings us to our final act, part 4, the prestige. Total sacrifice.
When you really start weighing the chilling moral costs paid by both of these men, that's where the true horror lies. Borden lived his fractionated half-life, constantly switching places with his brother, literally mutilating his own hand just so they remained perfectly identical. And his moral crime? Driving his wife, Sarah, to suicide through absolute relentless deception. Then you look at Angier. He executed an innocent man by framing Borden and willingly suffered the agonizing pain of drowning himself every single night.
Let's pause and really emphasize the terrifying reality of Angier's real transported man trick. The Tesla machine creates a flawless clone. One Angier drops through a trapdoor straight into a locked water tank to die, while the other suddenly appears up in the balcony to soak in the applause. Now, early in the film, Angier told himself this comforting lie that drowning was like going home. But Cutter drops that dark revelation at the end. Drowning is absolute agony. This just proves the sheer, terrifying depths of Angier's toxic obsession. He is literally willing to endure an agonizing suicide night after night after night simply to win the rivalry.
And this brilliantly illustrates the crushing weight of Borden's reality as well. You see, the original transported man wasn't a mechanical trick at all. It was a life trick. Two brothers sharing one single identity. One truly loved Sarah, while the other truly loved Olivia. It required the total devastating destruction of their individuality. They need to completely suppress their basic humanity, all just to maintain a single perfect illusion.
So, what does this all boil down to in the end? Two men who were completely, irrevocably consumed by the lies they told themselves. Both Angier and Borden totally obliterated their true selves, they destroyed their families, and they abandoned all morals entirely for the sake of the trick. Which leaves us with one final, totally provocative question to wrap up our explainer today. Who was the real monster here? Was it the showman who murdered copies of himself and framed his rival? Or was it the magician who gaslit his own family and mutilated his flesh for his art? Well, I'm going to leave that for you to debate. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive into the Prestige. And remember, are you watching closely?